welcome to Ringtalk, Goodwin Boxing's weekly show with myself, Martin Theobald, and Steve. How you doing, Steve?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm all right.
As I was saying, I've just watched your Frankie Warren interview, so anybody that hasn't seen it on Square Mile, it's a brilliant interview. Go and watch it. It's brilliant. I haven't seen the others yet, but it was a brilliant interview.
No, it is brilliant, and it's not me that's brilliant. It's Frank that's brilliant. His stories are fantastic, and I could have happily sat there all day and listened to what he said. The Jake Paul one, I got loads of grief online for that Jake Paul one. Oh, he's a clown, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen to it. Listen to what he says. Any boxers that are watching this, go and find it on Square Mile. Listen to what he says. He talks about content. He doesn't do it in Jake Paul mode as in the one that we see in boxing. He does it as Jake Paul, the businessman. And it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And then there's one with Anthony Ogogo coming out this week. And that's heartbreaking in places. You know, he talks about his eye injury from the Cunningham fight and how he kind of hit rock bottom in life, but he never talks about it as rock bottom. He's a very positive individual. Just brilliant to listen to. About an hour's worth of how he's got to where he is now in the wrestling world.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to listening to that as well. He's a nice fella, so that'll be really good.
Yeah, and we've got Sam Jones coming up. Then we've got a couple of other people that we're looking at as well. That I'm not even sure I've told you those ones.
Well, they're interesting characters, aren't they? It's brilliant, really good.
Yeah, the idea of it is innovators in boxing, people that have done things slightly different. So yeah, it's all good fun. Right, let's go straight to Spain. Let's talk about the debacle that was the refereeing in the Kay Prosper Sander Martin fight. Let's talk about Kay. I know you've spoken to him.
Don't just skip that about the refereeing. The Jez Smith fight that was so bad. And I've criticised judging on here, and I think we can still criticise, but I don't think I've witnessed such bad refereeing personally as I saw on Saturday. And my advice to any boxers is don't go to Spain. You are not getting a fair shake there. It's bad. So there's nothing worth going to Spain for. I don't know why anybody would go. But boxers should boycott it while it's this corrupt.
So La Haraja against Jez Smith. Jez Smith takes one to the chin, shows a bit of sign of pain. And that's what it was, wasn't it? His face kind of gave away the fact that he was. And the momentum of the fight had gone. It had gone La Haraja's way after he was in trouble earlier. My gut feeling is that fight was only going one way anyway, which is Jez Smith probably being in trouble.
Yeah, but that's not the point, is it? I mean,
but that's not the point.
Well, the point to me was in that fight, Jez Smith ran out of gas. This is my view. I know Jez will probably, I've seen his interviews. You could notably see at one point in the fight, his conditioning deteriorated very quickly and rapidly, and you saw he was in trouble. But that's not the point. The point was the referee gave La Haraja, I think, nearly 30-second breaks with no warnings when he got rid of the gum shield twice after being knocked down, and there was no issue about it, and they carried on. And as soon as Jez was in trouble, he stopped it at the first opportunity. I mean, it's shocking. It was abominable, but it was just a prelude to what was coming next, wasn't it?
Yeah, and credit to Jez Smith, because if you go back 5 years, out of Jez and Mitchell Smith, there's no way you would have assumed Jez would be the more prominent of the two Smith brothers in the bigger fights, with more of a notable career than Mitchell.
Agree. No, you can't. I mean, I think I genuinely, and it's not as a criticism because he's a tough man. And I don't know whether it's down to his trainer or whether it's down to him. But if he could improve his conditioning, he could be a really, really good fighter. But I don't know why it's not. But there's something missing in his conditioning. And I know he's trained forever, but his conditioning didn't last. And he wouldn't.
It's not even down to the short notice, is it necessarily? We've seen it before in Jez Smith fights.
Yeah. So, but I think he's really talented. But there's something wrong. And it may be mental. Something wrong that in the middle of a fight, you can notably see the conditioning ebbing away, and his guts then give him a second wind, but his punches have less power, and everything starts to fall away for him. And if it didn't fall away for him, he could be an exceptional fighter.
One thing we're missing, we're talking about how Jez Smith got a hard time over in Spain on Friday night. Gavin McDonnell didn't.
No, I didn't say, I genuinely, and I'm not doing the Arsene Wenger here, I didn't see the fight. I know that the British judge gave him every round, and I'm told that he did not win every round.
Ooh.
No?
No, he didn't. There's no way did he win every round. But, you know, look, we sent a Brit over there to judge it. He's evened it out a little bit compared to what the other Brits had had.
But the other thing was, but the other Brits weren't undone by judging; they were undone by the refs, and that's a big difference. We know that judging happens wherever you go; it's all bad. But when a referee does, especially what they did in Kay Prosper's fight, just taking points off because he's throwing punches or breathing or doing anything, it's just for no reason, no warnings, just taking points off because he was obviously worried that Martin wasn't ahead enough on the cards. He obviously didn't realise what was going on the cards. He's thinking, I better take some points off in case Kay Prosper's winning rounds here. It's so bad, so bad. And nobody mentions it. They carry on. They laugh about it on the commentary. They come back. Everybody's cracking on as if nothing's happened. Get ready for the next wave of Brits to send over there to fight the Spaniards. And you're thinking, what is going on here? This is just appalling. And you've got people's careers and Kay Prosper's having his defining fight. And nobody's saying that Kay Prosper would have won that fight anyway. I'm not. But he didn't have a chance to even to do the best he could. And
let's come on to the Kay fight. Let's hit on it. So he lost on points widely, had points deducted during the fight for, well, I'm not even sure what the point deduction before.
We think it was for, I speak to Kay today, we think it was either for breathing too hard or for looking like he was throwing too many punches. But it's ludicrous. I mean, if you look at the scorecards, Nikolov had Kay winning 3 rounds without the points deduction. Gonzalez, it's 4 rounds. Yeah, no, he had him winning 3 rounds, and they had him winning 1, and Lyson had him winning 3 or 4 rounds. He's won 3 or 4 rounds there. And that's about right. But he had 2 points whacked off him, but he's won 3 or 4 rounds, which is more rounds than Joe Hughes won, right? So he's won 3 or 4 rounds, so he's losing 8-4, 9-3, really. And I think that was a fair reflection. But he wasn't allowed. He said his confidence was not, because every time he went to get close or to throw, he felt the referee was going to stand in, stop him, warn him. He said, unless you fight, you don't know what it feels like to know that whatever you do, the referee's going to jump in on you. He said, it's so unsettling. He said, and he knew from the start he was being warned, and he said in round 2 and for nothing. And he said, it just unsettles you as a fighter when you realise what is going on in there and you're fighting the referee as well. And he said, therefore, your brain goes out the window and you know you can't really do anything. He said, and you just don't perform as well as you should. And despite that, he's won 3 or 4 rounds, which I think was of great credit to him. But he said that it was my defining fight, and I never had a chance to show how good I was. Whether that's good enough or not, probably not. But I didn't have a chance. And he said, and it's disgusting that at my stage I build up to a big fight and you get totally and utterly treated like that. And you come back here, and he says, and nobody really, if in any power, even talks about the fact that it's wrong, that somebody should intervene and protect British fighters from that. Nobody. It's wrong. Really,
right.
Really
I'll
bad.
turn that around then.
Go on then.
Who would protect British fighters from that? Because as a British Boxing Board of Control, they've overseen overseas fighters getting screwed on the cards time after time after time, and have done nothing to protect those overseas fighters. So what recourse could we possibly have to go over to Spain and say, your refereeing's not right? Because they'll turn around and go, behave.
Yeah, but it's not fair on the fighters, is it? It's not Kay Prosper's fault that this is what is wrong with boxing, right?
Yes. I agree completely.
The sport is bad news at times, and very bad news, and it's wrong. It's unfair. It's biased, and to be honest, I think this is why if you look at a lot of people that go into boxing leave boxing because you're in a sport that is not unfair. It's not fair, and a boxer gives all his time and tries to build a career, and he gets jobbed off. It's not right. No matter whether you're Jez Smith, whether you're Kay Prosper, whether you are the Spaniard that's fighting Gavin McDonnell, it's not right. And whether you're Kamil Sokolowski against David Adelaide, I haven't seen the fight, I've just read the reports. I mean, it just is bang out of order and unacceptable, but it's never going to change. It's how it is. Everybody seems to cover it all up for each other, and everybody will carry on. And Canelo will get, if Billy Joe Saunders even wins on points, he'll be totally jobbed out of it. He's got no chance of winning over there, even if he really wins. That's how boxing is.
The sport's fucked. It's fucked. Putting it like look at poor old Miguel Vasquez. Comes over here, unarguably, in my opinion, beats Lewis Ritson and O'Hara Davis.
Easy, yeah. Both
doesn't get a win in either. And yet, if fans criticise it, we're the ones in the wrong. In that you watch, I don't know, there was the IFL interview with Robert Smith. I know he wasn't in a good place the day after. He's probably had loads of grief that night. I feel for him to that degree. But he'll come out, and this is a view of me. This isn't the view of Goodwin Boxing, by the way. But, he'll come out and say, fans, they don't know what they're watching, or they don't have the same view, or, they've been drinking down the pub. That's Steve Bunce, after the Adelaide fight, he tweeted something about fans giving abuse. Oh, they've all left the pub and they're watching it. I haven't had a drink in about 2.5 months. And I watched it Saturday night, and I thought Adelaide got battered. He was nowhere near winning that fight against Sokolowski. Not because I've been down the pub, and if I had, I could still tell you that Sokolowski beat him. But this is my point, that where do we expect justice for our fighters to go overseas and get fair results when other overseas fighters come here, get robbed, and then the best that we can do as a board or as high-level journalists is go, fans don't know what they're watching, that's garbage. Like, who's holding who to account over it? If journalists aren't holding the board to account and the board aren't holding themselves to account, nobody's being held to account. And so everybody's just scratching their own back and screwing everybody else.
And you convinced him to be the world title eliminator. Nice lad that he is, he doesn't deserve that.
No.
He doesn't deserve what everybody's forgotten. What we're not. It's just wrong, isn't it? It's just bang out. In most other industries or things, it just would never be tolerated. This
the whole sport, top to bottom. Lyndon Arthur been moved up to #1 in the WBO today.
Yeah, I saw that.
Today, he's not done anything in the last month to move him up. There's no disrespect to Lyndon Arthur. That result against Anthony Yard was superb. Doing it with one hand, superb. Is he the #1 light heavyweight in the world outside of the world title holder? I think it's Joe Smith, isn't it, for WBO? No, he's not. You've got nothing that tells me he is. It's not just boards, it's sanctioning bodies. To me, there's corruption throughout. And if it's not corruption, it's incompetency. And if it's not incompetency, it's, I don't know. But there's an ambivalence that bothers me. It's what you said. Who's fighting Kay Prosper's corner when he comes back here and he's been jobbed? Who's helping Kay out for that? He's not been jobbed in a way that he deserved to win, but he lost. But he was never given the opportunity to win because of the circumstances. Nothing will get done about it. As you said, the commentators were literally laughing about it on DAZN. Commentators that didn't know who Kay Prosper was. Commentators that were saying, he's come from nowhere. No, he hasn't. He's not come from nowhere. It's just that you've got people in a commentary team that haven't done their research on a bloke who's headlining a show. It's tragic.
I agree. The commentators deserve shooting because they knew nothing about him and it didn't take a lot to research him. Shocking.
And I'll tell you, there's someone who works for DAZN who, in the past, I'll say DAZN has worked within other organisations. In the past, has messaged me about boxers coming through from small hall shows going on to bigger shows to ask a little bit of information about them for when they're doing some kind of commentary. And I think that's brilliant. You actually bother to put in the time and effort and respect to those people that are working their way up through the sport. To sit there and laugh at them and their situation and not having bothered to even look into their background or how they've got to where they are, I find it dreadful, personally. So I had a real downer on the back of the weekend's boxing. It pissed me off in multiple ways.
Me too. It sickens you with the sport. You just think, fuck the sport, because what's the point? What's the point?
You end up last week, the whole world kicking off about the European Super League in football because it's corrupt. It doesn't encourage competition. Blah blah blah. Boxing doesn't encourage competition. It doesn't encourage you to be your best. It doesn't encourage someone like Kay Prosper at 36 years old to have another go at it because what? Would you go and ask for a rematch out in Spain? No. It saddens me. But yeah, anyway, so that's my rant out of the way. It's been bothering me all week.
I couldn't agree with a lot of that more. It's just appalling, and it's just what goes on. But everybody seems to be, it's all about the money. It's all about who makes the most money, who they need to win. Sandor Martins, the Spanish thing is very thin on the ground. They can't afford their top boys to get beat. They need them for the platform. So they just don't make sure that there's no hope of them getting beat. Laraja, they need to stay there winning because he's got a bit of a name and he needs to be there. Can't have Jez Smith beating him because that's the end of him. So they do everything possible to make sure.
And can I say, Sandor Martin, fair play. Like, he's a nice technical boxer, but I would not watch him again if I'm not watching that geezer ever again. If he's the main event of a DAZN show and he's who they're pinning their Spanish hopes on, then their Spanish channel is screwed because that geezer is awful to watch.
He is their one. He's the one.
I'd rather watch Laraja. At least he's fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't disagree.
Sandor Martin he's good, but you felt, I don't know, maybe that was the absolute best of him, in which case, Josh Taylor would be absolutely delighted if he ever ended up, somehow challenging for one of his world titles. But there was nothing about him that made me think he's world level. And I was just frustrated throughout it, thinking, at least open up a bit and do something. And I appreciate maybe if you did, he leaves himself open to Kay Prosper, sticking it on him a bit more. But he was boring. He was boring to watch. But yeah, again, that's just another thing that annoyed me over the weekend's boxing.
There we go. I didn't see the only fight I did see because I was socialising at the time was the Cash. I saw the Cash Bentley fight, and I thought, and that was exactly. It showed levels, right? Because we'd spoken about it, about Bentley had come through, Cash was the elite amateur. And I had said that, in my opinion, Bentley was good against Heffron because Heffron was just stand up straight and didn't have the boxing skills that Cash would bring. But, I mean, Cash was just levels and levels and levels above Denzel. And he just absolutely tore him to pieces. It is exactly as I said about Linus and Brad. Linus and Brad would fight Bentley in a heartbeat. And that was, but Cash is different level. It'd have to be really good money for something big to fight Cash, right? And he's really good. Cash is really, really good. And Denzel was exposed.
Maybe Cash goes upwards. There's very little point him hanging around at middleweight in the British scene, is there? It's
well, no, they're saying that Frankie's saying that
Liam Williams
is going to be mandatory for him for that. So I don't see why Cash would want to defend his British.
Not for a British title.
No, he'd fight Liam Williams for something higher. But why fight Liam Williams for British title? It makes no sense.
I I'd love to see it. What a fight! But Felix Cash was brilliant, and I think I underestimated how good he was based on the Jack Cullen performance. The Jason Wellborn performance, I don't read anything into because Wellborn was washed by that point. But yeah, that performance Saturday night was punch perfect. Every minute, every round.
I think, Martin, what it was. I've always said this about certain fighters. You know, I do talk about certain fighters, and I go, if you put that fighter against this type of fighter, and no names mentioned, they're not going to win, because it was about the type of fighter Bentley was facing there. It was just the type of fight. You put a Heffron type in front of him, he could look quite good. If you put, like Brad Paul's is more like a straightforward fight. Now, that would just be a war zone, right? But you put Linus Udofia in front of him, who's moving, slipping, sliding. Bentley would not win. Now he could with Brad. It's going to be who lands, but yeah. And I think Brad hits harder than Denzel Bentley. I don't think Denzel Bentley hits as hard as people think he does, but he's a really good operator, Denzel, and he's around British level. But it's got to be against a certain opponent, a certain type of style.
Would you push, because if we assumed the Commonwealth and the British get vacated next by Felix Cash, would you push for Brad and or Linus to go up to that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't particularly want to fight Leon Williams for a British title unless it's humongous money. But, 100%. I mean, it's something I will talk about. But, yeah, we want to fight, and we want to move on. We want to move on. Those two are going to be in big fights in the next 12 months, for sure.
I don't see where Liam Williams sits now. Like, he's in an awkward position, isn't he?
Exactly that. Well, look, Frank's talking about bringing him back to British level.
He seems above that. Like,
yeah, I think he's above
the Andrew Robinson fight. He absolutely demolished him, didn't he? It was men against boys stuff.
I'm not really sure why Frank wants to bring him back, unless it's just to try and get Matchroom to vacate the title, so he gets it back in his camp. Maybe might be a manoeuvre because Frank's super smart. Who knows? But I think Linus is well up in the agenda for a British title shot now. Well up.
Yeah, it's got to be.
He was going to fight an eliminator against Dignam until Dignam pulled out. So on that basis, we will make representation of the board. There's no way Dignam should be ahead of Linus for a British title fight when he pulled out in an eliminator. So we would make representations to ensure that doesn't happen, because that should not happen.
What happened to Eddie Hearn's winner stays on philosophy? I love the fact that he signed Michael Mackinson this week, by the way. Brilliant. Yeah. Great for Michael. Chuff for him. Great signing. Plenty of potential. What happened to Linus? Come on, Edward.
When I heard afterwards, the only thing I heard afterwards, I think I spoke to one of the Matchroom people, and they said, "Oh yeah, it would be interesting putting Linus against Felix Cash." I said, "Well, hold on a minute. He's won. We're talking." So they were just wanting to use him as an opponent for Felix Cash. That was the only plan they had. But look, it's how it is. That's it. It's his prerogative. He doesn't have to sign anybody that wins, and it's up to him. But from our point of view, the train is still there. We're going to get there, and I'm sure when Linus gets there and wins his next big fight, that the situation will be different.
Yeah, well, hopefully then moves towards a British, even if it's Dignam for the British.
That'll do.
As you say, it's not that Dignam should be ahead of him, but if the two of them were matched off. But I was texting Linus Saturday night and asking for his opinion on how it all went. And he wasn't shocked, I don't think, about how it went.
He fancied Cash to win all day long on that, and he didn't think it was close. He did not. Linus was bang on. It was very similar to me. He didn't think it was even he didn't think it was a competition. He thought it was a one-way, which is the way that we thought it would be. And Denzel will come again. He's very, very good talented. He will come again, but he's not going to be an elite boxer.
Yeah, well, I think the fact is, Cash, and time will tell. Nothing else. Cash is above that level, isn't he? I guess
I think so. Yeah, but Denzel can come again. I like Denzel Bentley. I think he's all that stands good in the sport. He's done it the hard way, and I'm sure he'll come again. But that was just not the right opponent for him. And again, you can develop fighters through.
You keep talking. I'm letting my cat out. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
I mean, you can develop fighters through the whole regime, but you've got to think about, if you're going to try and get them to be the optimum, you've got to try and think about what type of fighters it would suit them to face. So if you know that the fighter needs boxers, until you have to fight a brawler, you fight the boxers. If you know they don't need movers, avoid the bloody movers. If they like movers, then fight the movers. And then, okay, when you get to a level, you've got to fight those fighters. But it's about really recognising what sort of fighter your fighter wants to fight. And that's what we try to do.
Yeah. So let's move on. This weekend coming.
Yeah.
Sonny Edwards Friday night, fighting for a world title.
Yeah.
What do you think of Sonny Edwards? Start off with that. Outside of the boxing, what do you make of Sonny as a character?
Yeah, I like him.
I love the fact that he absolutely annoys people. I think it's hilarious. I think
he doesn't annoy me though, because we've tweeted a couple of times backwards and forwards, and we've just agreed on stuff and chatted about stuff on a couple of tweets. So he's perfectly fine. He's got his views. He says them, and he doesn't really care if people agree or disagree. But I think he's good for the game. He's a character. You want characters. I really hope he wins. I don't think he will, but I really hope he wins.
Yeah, and whether you agree or disagree, at least people pay attention to it. I don't always agree with what he says. Sometimes what he says is garbage, but I don't have an issue with it. Crack on. And I think it's great that he's willing to put his neck out there and spread his own views. So as a fight,
like him and Ebony Bridges that do what they do. Ebony Bridges is running around the country. She's been in Sam Smith's amateur gym in Leeds teaching the kids. She's been running around everywhere. What an amazing self-promoter she is. And you're talking about, you talk about now about Sonny Edwards. He's not doing the same thing, but he's doing it on social media. And it's good that he's doing it. People need to see characters nowadays. They need to see characters.
Can I say Ebony Bridges, in the last, how long has she been over here? 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks? Yeah. Has done more for women's boxing in the UK than 90% of UK female boxers.
Totally agree.
She's been brilliant.
Totally agree. Good luck to her. Good luck to her.
No, I agree completely. I think somebody needs to sign her up on a visa as an ambassador or something for the female sport in the UK and let her do her thing because she's good at it.
I agree. Totally agree.
Sonny Edwards. So you don't think he'll win Friday night?
No. Well, I mean, the only reason he wins is if Mcfarlane has gone old overnight. I mean, Mcfarlane's 38 years of age, hasn't fought now for 16 months. So you know at those weights you can age overnight. But based on where he was, no, he doesn't. I don't think he wins, but I wouldn't want to put any money on it because it could be that Sonny is coming right at 25 and he's just sloping down. He doesn't beat, in my opinion, the best South African that there could be. He doesn't. So you've got to hope he's going over the top. I don't know whether you agree or disagree, but
I just like the fact you avoided saying his name again there by saying South African.
I can't pronounce it properly. I can spell it, but I don't know.
Frank Warren did the same thing Saturday night on BT. He talked about the South African rather than trying to pronounce it.
Because it is hard to pronounce unless you get a bit of training. You don't want to say it wrong because you sound really stupid. So, yeah. But I think he's. But 38 is very old.
Do you know what? It was only today I was chatting with somebody online about Mcfarlane, whatever his name is, I don't know. I look back because he's on his box rec. He's suspended by Nevada State Athletic Commission
permanently or indefinitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to look back through to find out why he fought Nonito Donaire there in 2008. Yeah. 13 years ago, he was fighting Donaire. He got knocked out, so I assume that's what his ban was, is that he hasn't fought back in Vegas since, and they need to clear
He fought for world title 13 years ago, and he's still a world champion today.
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? It's
At the age of 38, the wheels are going to come off.
Yes.
So I can only assume Frank is shrewd, although nowadays he takes more chances with his fighters. In the old days, he'd be damn sure, like the days when Hearn fought Barrera, he would be really sure that they were gone. Now I think it's more, I think he's under a bit more pressure with BT, so he's taking more chances. You can't be sure either way that this kid's gone. Yeah. If he's gone, Sonny can win. If he's not gone, Sonny doesn't win.
Yeah, I'd agree. But I don't think it doesn't damage Sonny Edwards particularly if he loses.
No, he'll come again. He'll win. I think he'll win a world title. Just might not win this time.
Yeah, agree. I don't know what's on the undercard there. I haven't really looked.
Not a lot.
No.
There's actually one good fight, but I'd normally talk about it being a small hall fight, which Troy Williamson and Kieran Smith, but they're sort of 32 unbeaten between the two of them, but I don't really know them, and I haven't seen enough of them to make a real judgment, but it looks like a good fight. Conlon against Baluta, no, I don't think that's much of a fight. But the Kieran Smith was a good amateur, but that's an interesting fight. You're putting two undefeated kids in together, so that'll be a good fight.
It's a British title eliminator, isn't it, that one?
Is it? Yeah, it could well be. I've even noticed this. But it's a really good fight. And it's a really, really good fight. And what can you say? But again, I don't know. I've seen Troy Williamson a few times, but I wouldn't know enough about them. If you're talking about Southern area fighters, then yeah, we'd be able to pass a lot better judgment on it. But I'm not going to try and claim I know anything about them when I don't.
Yeah, but I'm all right with it. Friday night, boxing, world title fight. Yeah. I'm all right with it. Crack on.
Good little card. There's three reasonable fights. The rest of them are prospects, but it's all right.
Yeah. You don't have to pay additional for it, unlike Saturday night.
Yeah.
So, it's like Matchroom have just put their hand into a big bag and picked some names out and gone, right, that'll do. Let's make a pay-per-view out of that. Bivol against, who have we got in here? Craig Rich. Craig Rich? That's mad. That is mad.
And that is sort of what's gone on. And then, then the IBO world title, which isn't really good enough for a world title, James Tennyson against this Giovanni Straffon. And, yeah, Eddie Hearn thinks it's unbelievable value for a pay-per-view. I saw an interview. Yeah.
If you have to tell me for 5 minutes that the IBO is a worthwhile world title, then I know it's not a worthwhile world title. Because you don't have to tell me that about any of the other sanctioning bodies.
No, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. And as I've also often said, I don't ever discuss what's pay-per-view worthy anymore, because it's pay-per-view worthy if people keep on paying for it. If people don't pay for the certain quality, it's not pay-per-view. The more that they buy what others may call substandard cards, the lower the quality or the lower the grade of the pay-per-view will be. But to be honest, it's pay-per-view worthy if enough people buy it. And that's the judge. It's really simple. It's not up for me or you or anybody else. Like, that's not pay-per-view worthy. It's pay-per-view worthy if they get enough money to make it a financial success.
Yeah.
And that's how you judge a pay-per-view card, in my opinion.
This is just, ultimately, it's a bunch of fight nights sellotaped together, isn't it? It's
Yeah, let's go with it. You've got Scott Fitzgerald and Campbell Hatton at the bottom of the card. So
against TBA.
Chris Eubank against Marcus Morrison. That's God knows where that fight's come from.
Again, they just put their hand in a hat and gone, Marcus Morrison, that'll do.
Yeah, so that's what's happened there. You've then got James Tennyson, Giovanni Straffon, which if you've seen that Giovanni Straffon box, I have watched him. He's not very good. He doesn't win. James Tennyson wins easy. It's a one-way fight.
I haven't even heard of him, let alone watched him.
Forget what the fight's labelled as. He's a Mexican. If I tell you he's a Mexican that fights in Mexico, and that's where he gets his record from, and he's lost to Tony Louis, Vaji Strakayon, and somebody, who was the other one? Carlo Mario Sanchez, who had lost 12 himself when he beat this guy. He's not very good. And I think I think we've got lightweights on our roster that will give him a good fight.
Well, that's all right. I'll just wait for Johnny Nelson to tell us Tennyson beats Gervonta Davis.
Oh God, yeah. So that's not really a good fight. I'm really happy that Natasha Jonas has got another crack at something. I thought she put up a really good fight against Terry Harper, and I mean she's a lovely girl. I managed her for about 3 months until Joe Gallagher took over. But she's a nice girl, and she deserves this crack against Katie Taylor. And good luck to her.
That fight is the only meaningful fight on the whole card.
Yeah, that's fair.
I genuinely mean that as well. That no other fight on there means anything, if we're honest. This one is, it's got the background of the amateur fight from the London 2012 Olympics. It's got the background of, Taylor's running out of opponents, isn't she, ultimately, that have any meaning to her career outside of fighting Delphine Pursoon every other fight or whatever.
Like Chantel Cameron, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't see that fight happening anytime soon, to be honest.
No, neither do I.
But yeah, for Jonas, she's got that Terry Harper fight and the fact that she feels hard done by, that she never got the win there. It's a meaningful fight, and to me, it's the best fight on that card by a country mile. In that you've got.
I love Dimitri Bivol, right? I think he's a great fighter. I really rate him. But Craig Richards is being sent as lamb to whatever happens. He's there as lamb to the slaughter, isn't he? To promote it, that's what that's about.
I like Craig as a bloke. I like Craig as a fighter. I like everything about him, but he doesn't win that fight. He doesn't win that fight in any way whatsoever. They sold him off to Channel 5 for the Shakan Pitters fight. Matchroom let him go there, fight Pitters. I don't think they ever thought he was going to win that fight, and he came back with the belt. Rather than investing in his career and giving him an opportunity to build properly from winning that British title through to a world title fight, they've chucked him in as a sacrificial lamb, as you say, for Dimitri Bivol to build a name over in the UK. That's what this is about, and I don't like it.
You can see what's going on here. There is a change of emphasis of the way Matchroom are operating now. Obviously, with the DAZN thing coming down the line, because it does look as if DAZN's a done deal, doesn't it? And whether they do anything with Sky, who knows? But you can see the change of strategy of what they're doing now. And they're using the Brits to go to Spain to get them beat, to try and get people watching in the UK. You can see his promoters are top promoter in the one, probably the top promoter in the world now, Eddie Hearn. So he's very smart in what he's doing, but there's a change of what they're doing. They're no longer worrying about building Craig Richards. They're more worried about the model that they're creating now around the world. So they'll build Campbell Hatton.
Yeah. Yeah, in the same mould they built Conor Benn. I don't have an issue with it. Good luck to Hearn. He's got this global deal. He's got more territories than just the UK to worry about. Yeah. And to that end, good luck to him using his available talent roster. But I do feel for Craig Richards, I'm sure he's getting paid well for it. I'm sure, in his mind, I'm sure he probably wins it. And I hope he does. I hope he somehow wins it. But if they fought 100 times, I would bet on Bivol 100 of those.
I really, really, really hope a miracle happens. But I don't think Craig Richards has any remote chance whatsoever. I just think it's how long he gets beaten down for.
Yeah. And
I think it could be a punishing fight for him, because he's got tons of heart. So Bivol, I don't want to see him, if he does lose, I don't want it to be a sustained beating. I'd like it to be over relatively quickly for him so he doesn't take a lot of punishment. But look, we all hope for a miracle, but it's really not going to happen.
I don't feel Bivol's not necessarily a knockout artist. He doesn't go for the kill too much. I mean, what do we know most for over here? Probably the Trent Broadhurst fight over in Monaco.
That was a fascinating fight. I was there that night. But then since then though, he knocked out, he stopped Barrera in 12, didn't he? And then he's had 5 on the spin going the distance. Pascal, Joe Smith, etc. So he's not a concussive puncher, but what he does, he just inflicts sustained punishment.
Yeah, but I hope in a week's time, Craig Richards can post this online, going, you were wrong.
I hope he does as well. I genuinely do, but in reality, that's not happening. It really isn't happening. And
then Chisora Parker, your old sparring partner, Chisora, and Joseph Parker.
Got to say, you've got to admire the way he keeps somehow. And again, I was part of it in the early days when he was out in the washing, but we got him to the pay-per-view level again when we looked after him. But you've got to admire how he continues to lose the meaningful fights. And that's it. If I said to you, name me the 2 best fighters that he's beaten in his career, go on, name them. You can tell you who he's lost to. Name me the 2 best opponents. Now, this isn't a trick question.
2 best wins. Who was the Polish geezer that he sparked at the O2 on the ropes? The bald-headed fella.
Was that Spilka?
Spilka.
Can you say that's a really world-class win?
No, I'm not saying it's a world-class win. I'm saying it's one of his 2 best wins.
I'll tell you the 2. I think his best win is against Takam.
Yeah, Takam, that's fair. But I mean, Takam and Spilka are 2 people that are boxing media generated monsters. And by that, I mean, they haven't done anything. They've not done anything at like world level. What's Takam's best win?
Probably not that great.
I've no idea. I know what his best losses are.
Let's look at when he stepped up though. Tyson Fury, Robert Helenius, Klitschko, David Haye, Tyson Fury again, that was a bad beating. Kubrat, Dylan White, which I don't think he lost that, to be fair. I think he drew it. A Caballero where he got beaten in Monaco, Dylan White again, and Alexander Usyk. So when he goes up that level, he comes up short every time.
But the other side of that is Joseph Parker's not that level.
Correct.
So Joseph Parker, and they've put. You've got Joseph Parker now teamed up with Andy Lee, and you've got Chisora teamed up with Buddy McGirt. What's the point for these 2? At this age, honestly, those 2 could be trained by me and you. And they're both going to go in and do exactly the same thing they've done through their career. And neither of them, like, I would willingly put money on that fight going the distance. Because both of them have got iron chins and neither of them punch significantly hard enough to damage the other. That fight goes the distance all day.
Who wins, Martin?
Chisora.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I do. And I think...
I genuinely have no opinion. I think they're fairly evenly matched. And
I watched Parker against that Junior Farr out in New Zealand.
Poor, weren't he? Poor.
Yeah, and Junior Farr was garbage that night. And Joseph Parker was barely any better. And Joseph Parker, his best win is Andy Ruiz, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yes.
And then Hughie Fury. But actually, when you look at what he's done in his career, it's hard to say he's a world level fighter. He's held a title, but he got beaten comprehensively by Joshua.
Yeah. But then so would Derek. Derek would get beaten comprehensively by.
Yeah, of course. And this fight does 0 for me. I'm not even sure I'll watch it. I probably will.
You got to. I mean, it's close because if you think about it, that Derek, I think in the first fight with Dylan, I think he was hard done by on the cards, and in the second fight he was winning till he ran out of steam and got knocked out. Whereas Parker, apart from landing the punch in the last round, was miles behind on the cards. Yeah. So on a level like, it's a fight you can't really call. Then you've got to remember that Parker now is being trained in the UK. I don't think it's a fight you can call, but I know it sounds really awful, but does it really matter?
No, it doesn't at all.
Some people going to the top level, and that's the point about these sort of cards. It's they're not their second level heavyweights, aren't they? Sounds awful, but they are. They're not the top.
If Chisora had if Parker had a passport that said he was from Morecambe, this fight is a British title fight.
Yeah.
And even then, it's two fighters that are clearly on the decline. Like, they're not two prospects fighting for British title. The winner of this doesn't go anywhere. They don't go anywhere because they've got nowhere to go. Like, who wants to see Parker against Fury? Who wants to see Chisora against Joshua? They're nothing fights. This is a nothing fight. It doesn't mean it'll be a bad fight, but it's not a meaningful fight. And that's when I go back to when I said about Taylor Jonas being the only meaningful fight on his whole card. 99 times out of 100, Richards is going to lose. Marcus Morrison's going to get his head pummeled and his body and everything else. Chisora Parker's meaningless. It's only Taylor and Jonas that are a meaningful fight out of the whole thing.
That's fair.
But yeah, what do I know? There's an IBO world title, so I should watch it. I should pay my 20 quid. I won't be paying 20 quid. Not a hope. Some people will, though, and that makes it pay-per-view, and that's cool. Good luck to them.
Exactly.
Right, questions. What we got? Right, Rakeem Noble. What's a worse call? David Adelaide's 58-57 or McDonald's 50-46?
Well, you've got to answer. I genuinely haven't seen either fight. So
I could give Adelaide at least one of the rounds in that fight.
Only one?
For Adelaide?
Did that only one? Seriously? One round?
No, I can give him at least one, whereas McDonald's opponent didn't even get given one fight. So for Adelaide to win 58-57, I'd say the McDonald one is worse. At the time of the stoppage, his opponent had won a round or three. So I would say the worst one out of the two of them is McDonald. Better Q on Twitter. Hi, Steve. After Barry Hearn's recent retirement announcement, I know you're a couple of years younger than him. It's more than a couple. Fucking hell. When would you feel in a position to hand over to Josh and Olivia, knowing you could happily walk away and not get involved?
Well, Olivia, I don't think that'll ever happen. I don't think that Joshua now would want to take over running boxing, because he's got this financial business to take care of now. And with all respect to everything else, it's much more stable, the financial business for him going forward. With, he's going to settle down, buy a house with his partner, Kate, this year. And for him, boxing he enjoys it and he's had the good times with it, but it's not a stable business to be in because you're not surrounded by stable people. So from that point of view, he wouldn't want. He has always said that he doesn't want to do it if I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And Olivia now has got a very successful beauty business, and she is really successful doing that. So while she'll do a bit of boxing promoting, while I'm still involved with it, if I stop, she'll stop. And Kevin, who's been worked within the boxing, he's now training in the financial world as well. And I can't see Kevin wanting to continue when I stop. So when I stop, it stops. That's what's going to happen. And when will I stop? When as anybody knows, I don't do boxing for money. It will stop when I've had enough and when I feel that I don't enjoy it anymore. And there's no time scale on that.
Yeah, and I think that comes with the passion for it, doesn't it? And every little thing that ekes away at that passion, every shitty phone call with a coach or another manager, or every dodgy decision, it must chip away at that enthusiasm to do it, because it's always like the question of why are you doing it must always eke away even more so in the weeks when it's garbage.
Yeah, it's difficult. At times it is like that, and but when that happens, it happens. But it's not. There is no handing over in boxing. There'll be a handing over. If that question was aimed at my financial business, that's a question I could really answer and discuss, because I've got a strategy for that. But in terms of boxing, there is no exit passing on strategy, because there will be no passing on.
I reckon it'll be when your wife Trisha tells you that you're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, she'd be happy if she would be happy if I stopped doing it now. But she's not. No, she would be. But
I'm surprised.
But she's not at the stage where she's demanding it.
That'll come. There'll be a day. There'll be a day. We'll know.
And at the end of the day, we're deadly serious. When that day comes, if that day comes before I'm really ready to, or when I'm ready to stop, I've got to turn around and say, I've had a wife that's supported me through everything through my life, whatever I've done. And if she got to the stage where she felt that it was really impinging on our life, then you've got to say she's got to come first.
Yeah. And then you ought to do one last show at that point. Give every one of your boxers notice that, unfortunately, the time has come. Do one last show, a massive show, and we'll do a half-hour live Q&A in the middle of the ring where we'll slag everyone off that deserves it. And then we get called before whoever. It doesn't matter, because there won't be a license after that.
God dear me, I think we need longer than half an hour, wouldn't we?
Question 2 from Better Q on Twitter. Oh, Kev's going to have to edit all this out, isn't he? Nah, don't tell him about it.
Okay.
Plans for K Prosper now?
Well, I spoke to Kay today. He doesn't want to go out on that result because, he said that he can accept giving his best and losing. He can't accept going out when he wasn't able to give his best, and he's not gone out giving the performance that he wanted to give. And he said it wasn't because I lost or whatever, but if I'd gone out and lost 7 rounds to 5, 8 rounds to 4, and I couldn't do any more, and it was fair, he said, maybe that would be it. He said, but he wants to hunt for another big fight, because as we said, he won more rounds than Joe Hughes won, really, forgetting the deductions. And Joe Hughes is a British level fighter, so why can't Kate get a shot at something big? He wants a big shot at something before he's ready to go, and that's what we're going to be hunting for.
He's still English champion, isn't he?
No, he had to vacate that.
Okay. I'd love to see, just to maybe end the career, maybe not end the career, but as that opportunity to potentially go out on a high or go out giving it as all, something like a Robbie Davis Jr. fight.
That's exactly the fight we spoke about today.
Was it?
The fight. That's the fight we want. We want that fight.
British title, Robbie Davis Jr. Give it your all. If you come out on top, amazing. If you don't, amazing. But either way, that kind of fight to end his career,
and he can give it. He can give it his all. It's not going to be swayed by officialdom like we've just seen. Look, he might fight in Liverpool, and the judges might favour Robbie Davis Jr. That's acceptable. You understand that, but not where it impacts on him fighting round after round after round while he's fighting. At the end of it, if you lose a couple of rounds because you're boxing in somebody's hometown, that's all cool, but not the referee doing that.
And he can beat Robbie Davis Jr., by the way, no doubt about that.
Well, he thinks that as well. Yeah.
100%, I believe that.
Yeah.
Question number 3: would there be a reluctance on your part to work with Eddie Hearn in the future, given this weekend's debacle?
That's not Eddie Hearn's fault. He's running shows in Spain, and he's running them under the auspices of the Spanish Boxing Board. It's not the first time I've been to Spain, and the promoter's incidental. It's not Eddie Hearn's fault. Absolutely not. Eddie Hearn they're a decent Matchroom, a decent company to work with. Got no problems at all with them. I just don't want to take any fighters to fight in Spain under the Spanish board.
Say there's a fight that's worth reasonably, call it 15 grand.
Yeah.
That you get offered out in Spain. You get offered 15 grand.
Yeah.
for what it's worth, you'd turn that down now, presumably, on the premise that it's not.
Unless my fighter, the 15 grand, was worth more than what they're going to. If they thought that what they're going to walk into is worth 15 grand and their career's at the end and they want a payday and they think that's the maximum payday they can get, then take it. But if you're doing it for a career move, then absolutely not.
So what would be the amount now you'd be looking at? Like, is it 50% more? You're looking at 22.5 grand to.
I think it depends on which fighter it is, at what stage in the career they are. Linus Udofia, Brad Pauls will not be travelling to Spain for any money.
Yeah, not even on holiday. They're not allowed to go. Stay where you are.
I'll give you an example, and that's fact. They're not going to Spain no matter what they offer.
Yeah. Question 4. Any fight news for Phil Williams?
Well, no, he's just done his medicals because he's not had his medicals done for a few months. He's had some things, so he's only now ready to go again. So we're waiting for. We would like to fight Johnny Fisher. We would like to fight Solomon Ducray. We want there's people out there we want to fight. The other kid that fought the other day, Nick Campbell, we'd like to fight him. We'd like to fight them all, and Phil's looking for those fights. So, but we. I asked him that the other day. So I'd say in shape to fight, but not in the. He wouldn't be at the moment in the greatest shape.
Fair one. Final question. Talk about being in shape from Castella King. Evening, Steve. Any regrets on not lacing up the gloves yourself?
No, because I'd be rubbish at boxing. And do you know what? I actually, see, God's honest truth, I actually wanted to box when I was young, but I had a nose operation when I was 15, and they took the whole cartilage out of my nose, and it's actually under all my bones holding my nose up under here. But I've got no bone there, and it's all here. So I had that done when I was 15. So if you go there, you can feel all the bone underneath my nostrils, and it's what's holding my nose up. So I couldn't box. So in the end of the day, when I used to get in fights in school, or had to got myself in trouble, or not, well, it wasn't that, I tried to avoid it, but if you did get caught up, you'd only land one on my nose, and my nose would just burst to pieces. But, I mean, it wouldn't stop me, but if I was in a box, I couldn't box. I knew I couldn't box then because I can't be, I couldn't take sustained punishment being hit on the nose. So it was never really an option for me. But I think I'd quite like to have done it.
Join the white collar scene with me, Steve.
I still can't have a punch on the nose, Martin, and especially now, I've got a pacemaker there, a busted nose here. I'm probably not, probably not for me.
Safer to leave it these days.
Exactly. I'm too old now.
I enjoyed my white collar fights. They were good fun.
I mean, yeah, you did. You loved it. I mean, I think it's something I would like to have done. I mean, the last time I got in a big fight was 10 years ago in Turkey when.
Are you going to incriminate yourself?
Yeah, I better not say anything. But yeah, we ended up fighting about six people in a shop, and it was like, it was a war zone afterwards, and the police come and arrested everybody, and we were let. But long story. But it was anyway. But that was the last time I got caught in any stuff like that. But I ended up with blood everywhere, with wooden things over my head and everything. But yeah, that was about 10, 12 years ago now. But yeah, so last time, and apart from that, I'm a peace lover. I don't want war.
I'm with you. Right, that's it. That's all for this week. That was. I enjoyed having a bit of a rant. Needed to get out of the system.
Exactly. So now we move on. We'll review this next week and see what's on the horizon. I just want boxing to get back to normal so we can at least make some inroads and see what there is down the line. Because at the moment it's very difficult to know what's going on for anybody, fighters, and everybody's stuck in limbo land. So it's either, it's got to come back to normal by September. If it doesn't come back to normal by September, then we're really, as an industry, we're really going to struggle with all these fighters. But who knows? Who knows?
Cool. Lovely. Cheers, Steve.
Take care, my friend.
Take care. Thank you for watching, everyone.
Cheers.